and welcome back to my channel. I'm artist Jessica Cora Benson. If you've only just joined me, if you've only just tuned in, but you guys can call me Jess, Jessie or Jessica, it's all the same to me. In this video I am going to be reviewing this box set of 36 watercolour brush markers by King Art. Now if you haven't already checked out the last video that I did a deep water dive into both the professional and the studio box sets of acrylics by King Art. And I also just wanted to sweep something under the pan. Just because I mentioned in the last video that I don't like the word cheap doesn't mean that I'm an art snob. I was just clarifying that I just don't in particularly like the word. However, that does not mean that I don't believe in cheaper art supplies. I've used a lot of cheaper art supplies in the past that aren't even classed as professional, and I've been really taken back by them in a good way. Like, I've been really surprised by them and continue to use them throughout my creativity. So just because an art supply comes across cheap doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to give cheap results. I am aware of that, I do know that, but I just wanted to sweep that under the pan that I wasn't being an art snob. Anyway, without further ado, I'm going to be reviewing this box set today. I'm also probably going to be giving a little bit of an unfair comparison to with the Pro markers. I'm going to be having a dab hand at the Pro markers by Winsor and Newton. They're watercolour markers as well. I'm also going to be taking you through a variety of techniques and things that you can do to push the limits of watercolour markers, because not everybody actually knows how to use them. So I thought I would help you guys with a little bit of that today, and just to clarify on a few things that you can do with these pens. Whether or not we're going to be able to do it with these ones, I know we can certainly do it with the Pro markers, but whether or not we can do it with these ones, well, we'll soon find out. So without further ado, let's just roll on with today's video.
Now you can see that I've left the retail price on there in the top right hand corner at $12.99, which I think is pretty reasonable. I mean, you have a large variety of colours to choose from. Turning it over and reading the information on the back now, we'll see what King Art presents to us. So it states here on the back, have some real fun with our watercolour brush markers. Get painterly effects from broad strokes to fine lines, all from a true marker. Hassle-free setup and no mess, no clean-up needed. The vibrant colours and ease of use make these the perfect choice for any project. Water-based, acid-free, non-toxic and extremely user-friendly. Artists and creative enthusiasts love King Art. Bear in mind, I'd never heard of King Art until about a week ago. Our family has been exceeding the needs of the most demanding artists and enthusiasts for 3 generations. We delight in challenging the status quo and putting our experience to work for you. Okay, King Art. They seem to have the tendency of putting this onto each box, which I have noticed. And considering I've never really heard of King Art before, I've never really seen any other artists really particularly discuss King Art, let alone like use this brand. Not a wide variety of artists anyway. I mean, it's just a figure of speech, isn't it? When they say artists and creative and enthusiasts love King Art, I feel like that's like just a selling point. Like, that's instantly to get you hooked. So that's like their hook line. And just picking up it and reading it, you might think, well, if other people are using it, then I might as well give it a go too. That doesn't always necessarily mean just because a product says that it's going to end up being a good art supply product, you know? Okay, moving on to the overall casing. It's a plastic box. It has latches that snap perfectly into place. They really compact down well the whole 36 markers, which I do like. The box is easy to open and it's easy to close. You don't have to go and put these straight into a pencil case. You already have that space to utilise with the box. Beautiful array of colours. It's like a kid in a candy shop. I mean, they literally remind me of like what Blackpool Rock. It's basically sticks of candy that you can get from Blackpool in the UK. My uncle actually used to own the Rock Factory. Fun fact. Childhood nostalgia. For those of you only just tuning in, I'm not from Blackpool, I'm from Manchester, but I used to spend a lot of time in Blackpool with my grandparents. So the markers click straight out of place. The little bit of plastic at the bottom of these caps for the markers is just to prevent the marker from rolling off a tilted work surface or your desk, or even a flat desk. With such a large variety of colours, you'd think that King Art would actually do the placement of the colours on the barrel of the markers, just to give indication of what colours you are using when you go to choose the markers out of the set, instead of just eyeballing them. It's sometimes handy just to have that colour placed on the side, because I actually feel that children would sway to these more. Now, these markers do give the overall appearance of felt tips. And with that being said, I feel that children would be drawn instantly towards these. So that's another reason why I think the name of the colours should just be placed at the side. That way the children can kind of like learn and grow with them. Instantly, I noticed at the bottom of the barrel of the markers, there's a very, very hollow space. Sometimes a company will do this to save on money. There's definitely, there's more room for ink at the bottom of these markers. They just left that out. The tip of the marker is nylon. You can see here that I'm just snapping that marker straight right on back into place. I'm going to be doing all of my swatches in an Arteza mixed media pad, which I also did a review on quite a while back now. Overall, the paper is super good quality and it's great for watercolours and any mediums really. Instantly, I'm presented with sheer luminosity. The colours are vivid, they're vibrant, but let's see how they do with water. Oh, and what I'm pointing at there is when I opened the markers, some fallout happened, like splashes of the marker went onto the paper. So I'm just taking an oldish flat brush and I'm going over those swatches now with some water, making sure that every time with each individual swatch my water is clean, just so I don't cross-contaminate any of the colours, so that I can see the exact pigmentation that's picking up from each individual swatch. What you'll notice is that when the water was going straight onto those pigments, straight onto those swatches, the colours really maintained their saturation. But once the water had set and dried and completely dispersed, the value went down a peg. The colours ended up drying like a pastel, very, very soft, and you can see that there's definitely a lack in pigmentation compared to what there was beforehand. So I actually swatched the black twice because I thought it cross-contaminated the markers. However, that wasn't the case. Maybe they mixed a multitude of these colours to get that black, and you can actually see that when the colour spreads out, that once it's dried right at the end, you can see where there's like a fray of blue. So there's definitely a multitude of things going on within that black. Bear in mind that when it does disperse, as you would use a watercolour, then you're going to get a different colour. You're not going to get black. So you can see that it still looks black when the water's going on, but it doesn't dry like that at all. Okay, so one of the most common misconceptions about watercolour brush pens and watercolour pens, watercolour markers, is that they act as a alcohol-based marker, which couldn't be further from the truth. You should be using watercolour markers as you would actual watercolour. Like, you can even put your brush onto the tip of these pens and put the pigmentation straight down onto the paper. I would not recommend using any sort of standard paper. They're preferably for watercolour paper. And I can't stress that enough, because that's where you'll go wrong straight away. If you buy these pens thinking that you can just use them as a standard, just a standard alcohol-based pen, this isn't what these are used for. I'm going to show you a variety of techniques that you can do. And I think I might even try the Winsor & Newton as well, just because I've never done that here on this channel, because I do a lot of acrylic paintings here on this channel. So I'm gonna give a dabble at these and a dabble of these ones. I'm not going to use every single pen in this set because we'd be here forever, but just to show you a reference of how these pens could potentially end up looking onto watercolour paper. So Winsor & Newton is about as professional as it gets when it comes to watercolour markers. So I'm going to be taking the Watercolour Pro markers and comparing them to King Art, with just a couple of techniques just to show you how they vary. Water down on the paper, I'm going to see just how the pigmentation spreads as it should and as a watercolour would typically do. So doing exactly the same again with the King Art, I've also tried to find the closest comparison colour in the King Art set to the Winsor & Newton with that alizarin crimson. And you can see that the King Art just isn't that opaque compared to the Winsor & Newton. And also when I placed the water down and then touched it with the nib of the marker, yeah, I was getting no spread and no pigmentation come out on the paper at all, unfortunately. The King Art didn't openly disperse into the water like the Winsor & Newton did. So this is a watercolour sketchbook by Moleskine. As you can see, I filled it up quite frequently, and I've actually dabbled with all mediums in this sketchbook. Just roughly sketching out an eye. I'm not putting any harsh pencil lines down. I actually subtract with an eraser so that the pencil lines don't show through underneath the markers. So I'm going in with the approach that I typically would with watercolours when it comes to these marker pens. Time for a bit of fun, to loosen up and just see if I can push these markers to the test. Don't think I'm going to get anything too realistic. I'm bearing in mind that they do mute down once they have dried. So with that in mind, let's just do it. So just over a quarter away through, and I'm actually quite stoked at how the pigmentation's turned out. I have had to build them up. It's not completely dry, this eye, yet. Nothing's come through on the other side. I know that the colours that I'm working here are super intense and vibrant, so I thought why not go for a futuristic sort of feel. I'm going to carry on building this up a little bit more and contouring the eye a lot more now. I mean, I'm loving the blues, it's super strong, super intense. Yeah. So just so there's no confusion, this eye was painted using the Winsor & Newton watercolour sketches pocket box. You can still see my mixed colours for this. So I'm just taking a Winsor & Newton, pushing blue. What I'm going to do is run the nib of the pen all over this aqua wash brush. And then what the water from the barrel of that is going to do is pop it onto the paper. So you can see that I've already got some water in that barrel there. I'm just gonna, if I squeeze the barrel, you can see the water's going to come straight on out. So that's just another example of what you can do with these markers, and you can see just by doing that, I've got so much pigmentation and I'm not even running out. So you can stretch this. You're not constantly putting this brush onto the marker, because as you can see, you've I mean, look at all of that. And just go on and on and on. Obviously I will run out eventually, which is what I'm doing now. You can see, but just to show you the coverage that you're getting with the Winsor & Newton, I think that's pretty good. And then all you have to do is get a paper towel to change the colour and just wash that off. Now I'm going to try the King Art ones, but I honestly don't think I'm going to get much pigmentation. I don't think I'm going to get anything really coming onto this brush. Yeah, I mean, not much is going onto the nylon. These are nylon bristles. And at this point I'm thinking, is it a marker or is it a felt tip? And it's got me questioning quite a lot about these markers and what King Art are trying to sell to the consumers. Yeah. So very, very light opacity. We are getting some colour, but not a spread like we did with the Winsor & Newton. And I guess it's a very unfair comparison, but just to clarify, if you're into your very, very light, subtle washes, then these are great for that. But compared to the Winsor & Newton, and you can get this pretty much the same thing, you can still get a very, very light, depending on how much water that you add, you can still get a light wash. So there you go. And just run that across. There's nothing really coming off that pen. Yeah, I mean, some of them work, some of them don't. Like I say, I'm trying, but nothing is going on. But beautiful by Winsor & Newton. And I know it's a harsh comparison, but when you're testing out art supplies, you want to be able to see what's the best in market and what works not so well. So this is the case that the Pro markers came in. I got these for £16.95 and the original price is £23.45. These markers are going to last you a fair amount of time. I think they're worth every penny actually. It does say vivid colours on the front. However, when you place them down to use as a watercolour marker, it's not very vivid, is it? That's vivid. That's not very vivid. Ultimately, what would I use King Art markers for? To have fun, thumbnails, concept sketches, just drawing up designs in my sketchbook really. I wouldn't use them for a final complete piece, but to get down ideas, and you can have a ton of fun with them. I've obviously pulled this eye together with a little bit of white ink and a pencil, a coloured pencil, just to do the lashes with. Otherwise I would have had big chunky lashes if I'd done that with the markers. So that wasn't going to work. But with anything, sometimes you use other mediums to tie in with other mediums. So I found that complemented this eye, and an eye is really, really tricky to do as well, and it does take a fair amount of build up. So I was actually pretty impressed how well the King Art markers held up to do this, and I like the whole cyber feel. Storyboarding and just anything like that, these markers would actually be great for. However, I did this the other night, and I know myself as an artist, I can do so much better. Some green went into places that I didn't want it to go. I even wrote inside my sketchbook, feeling dissatisfied. And then I've got King Art plus the Winsor & Newton Sketchers pocket box. And the reason for that is because I went back over the markers and tried the Skechers pocket box to see if I could just tie it together a bit more neater and not make this beetle look sloppy. Still think it looks a little bit sloppy. But, you know, it's all about experimenting. They didn't work out for me for this, unfortunately, and kind of went right for the eye that I did. So you can see here, I'm a pansy queen, absolutely adore pansies. I thought, why not just try some out in my sketchbook and try again the Winsor & Newton, and they ended up looking really, really beautiful in my sketchbook. So hopefully in the future I'll do a finished piece with the Winsor & Newton markers. So just to show you the difference, I mean, I had better flow control with the markers on these as well. Again, an unfair comparison. So really, really happy with the Winsor & Newton. You don't always get control with watercolour, and that's one of the beauties about it, but if you do need it, then you do have it with these markers. So my loves, that is it for today's video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, because that'll tell you guys each and every time that I post.
and upload to this channel, which is quite frequently now. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. TikTok, I'm still trying to find my feet with a little bit. I'm a little bit late to the party on that one. Still trying to get used to things over on that side of things. Anyway, thank you if you stuck this video out like right the way on through and you are joining me here right at the very end. I appreciate every single one of you, cannot stress that enough. Anyway, I will catch you all in the next video, my loves. And until then, take care for now. Bye for now.